Hello again. Okay, so this is about the size I want my square to be because I'm making them specifically sized for a specific project. So I'm about ready to finish my piece. So I talked a little bit earlier about how you can do hem stitch. So if you wanted to do hem stitch and fringe, what I would suggest is leaving some warp open, still push down to the bottom at the beginning of your weave, and then leave some warp open. And I would perform the hem stitch across here if I wanted to have some fringe, just FYI. And I do have other videos that show you how to do hem stitch. But for this one, I'm not going to do hem stitch. I'm going to create a finished edge on both the top and the bottom. So I like to just leave my thread hanging. I even sometimes like to just kind of work my final row to like this, to the middle of the row. And then I can just weave in that end when I'm all finished. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. So as you can see, I only wove half of this last pass. And so when you do this, you're going to start at the center and you're going to work over toward one direction. I like to go to the right first and then over to the other direction. And so this is something that works on a small loom. It works on the bookmark loom. It's a little harder, but you can do it. But it's really nice for the small loom because we're going to be manipulating our warp threads. And so if you have the rainbow loom that we created, this is how I like to finish off the rainbow loom too, because you're just weaving a very small piece. So anyway, you want to go nice and slow. You want to have good lighting, and you want to make sure you're not trying to rush your way through it or you're pulling too hard. So when you do this, I like to go to about the center and I pop my warp thread, just one of the loops, I pop it off of the tooth. So do you see how it's just a loop hanging here into the air? I'm going to follow that warp thread down and I'm going to pull the corresponding warp thread also off of the loop. Sometimes you need to use your needle because you want to make sure you get the entire thing off. So you can see that there's a big loop up here, kind of hanging in the air, and then a smaller loop down here. And so I like to use my fingernails, and like I said, just go nice and slow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tug at the side of that thread that is attached to this. So it's the left side of the bottom and the right side of the top. And I'm going to tug, and as you can see, this top loop is snugging down. Do you see how it's getting smaller as this one gets bigger? And I'm going to tug it until it is right against the top of my weave. And then this loop down here has gotten a little bit longer than the top one was because it also has the little bit of a loop from the bottom. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to take this next loop only off of the teeth. So I think it's very helpful to do one warp loop by one warp loop, like one warp loop at a time, because I want to just like gently pull and gently snug each of these loops separately. So now, because the last time I pulled was down here, this one I am going to now tug. You see how it's getting smaller down there? So I'm snugging, tugging until it is right against. If you pull too tight, then you're going to have a divot, which you don't want. So we're just going nice and slowly. Remember that at the top, we've got the last pass we did is not secured by anything. Every other pass, right, is secured by the one above it because it compresses it. This one is kind of loosey-goosey. And so these, as you pull these taut, they're going to help to keep that top pass in its place. So I'm going back down here. See, I'm going to take this one off, this next one. And then I'm going to tug on it. Sometimes I need to use a needle to kind of help me access, especially the bottom ones. But watch this. I'm acting like we're here together and we're not, but that's okay. Let's pretend we are because it's so much fun to hang out and craft with somebody. Okay, so you see how I'm tugging? See how this one up here is just getting snugger and snugger? Look at that. And it's helping to hold that last pass of warp thread in place. Now I'm going to follow this up to the top. I'm going to take the top one off. And then I'm going to pull it. My beginning tail is in the way, so I'm kind of pushing it out of the way. I'm snugging this up. I want it to be nice and snug against the edge without pulling too much. So now look at how big this loop has gotten because I've got all of that extra slack from the top and a little bit of extra slack from the bottom. And if I turn this over, I see that there's only one little loop left on the bottom. And so I pull that off. And then I'm going to again tug on that little loop until it starts getting bigger. And it pulls this loop down. So here we go. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to do. Make sure that as you're doing this, you are being as gentle as possible. Like I said, it's really easy to mess it up. It's a great technique, but it is really easy to mess it up. I like to try to do it all in one go too, because I can get confused easily. And look at how that's nice and snug right there. Now, everything on this side has been pulled off from the bottom. So the last part that I need to pull is the warp thread that's tied up at the top. And see how I'm kind of pinching to hold it into place. I want to make sure that none of my little tails get tangled in anything. See how this whole bottom is nice and smooth, excuse me, and the whole top is nice and smooth. So that side is done. And then I'm going to start going this way. So when you are doing this, make sure that so I'm going to take this one off, and you see how this, if you follow this warp thread all the way down, we're going this direction. And so I'm going to take this one off, and then I'm going to tug here because I want to tug in this direction, right? I don't want to keep tugging. I don't want to take this off and then pull on this one because I want to start working over the other way. So take this off like that, and the bottom. Sometimes we're working with multiple plies, so sometimes one ply will get stuck, and that's just what happens. So now I'm going to pull this. And like I said, sometimes that first little tug, especially on the bottom, is the hardest one to do. But here we go. And so just do that all the way across, and then you'll have edges that look like this and that are totally secure, and then you can work your ends in. I like to take I don't like to use this big needle that came with your piece. I like to, if I have a smaller tapestry needle, I like to use that. And then I'll just kind of run along one of the warp threads to pull my ends through. And that's how I will secure my ends. And then you're done. And you can sew these together. You can make a patchwork. You can make a little box like I'm making. You can play around with different weaving techniques like shapes, like adding little shapes. You can use different kinds of thread. This is using 6-strand embroidery. No, I'm sorry. This is using pearl cotton embroidery thread, which is like 3 strands of 6-strand floss. You could use a full 6 strands of floss and see how that looks. You can use a cotton warp thread and then whatever kind of weft you want. There's so much you can do with it. I hope you have fun. I sure enjoy weaving on these little cutie pie looms, and I hope you do too. Let me know if you have any questions, and keep checking back because I do post tutorial videos on different crafts all the time. So, and I teach classes in Portland and beyond. So if you're interested in being a part of my community or Maria's community or both of our communities, please join us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.